There is a very cool video out right now that I want to check out. It's about WoW 2. Well, it's about an Azeroth revamp, I should say. So let's check it out. Is Azeroth getting a revamp again? The last time Azeroth really got a revamp, a full revamp, was Cataclysm. Now, there was a slight revamp, I think, in Mists of Pandaria as well. But let's see what this is all about. A revamp for WoW. Interesting. Could be
Azeroth
interesting.
is the planet on which the vast majority of the Warcraft franchise takes place.
Yes.
Since WoW's initial release in 2004, it has had 2 continents added, along with a number of island archipelagos.
It's the island
expansions. The 2010
expansions,
release of World of Warcraft Cataclysm, its original 2 continents, Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, to which I will henceforth refer as the Old World, saw a redesign. This was done in order to allow flying across them, because prior to Kata, the Old World was made without the consideration for flying.
Right.
And
all
a lot
the
of
buildings
things
were empty
designed
on the
with
top.
ground movement in mind. They were able to tie this world revamp narratively by Deathwing's awakening. As he ruptured out from under the planet's crust, he flew across the continents of Azeroth to herald his arrival and wreak havoc among the world population. This happened 13 years ago.
Yeah.
With the release of World of Warcraft Classic, players were able to once again venture into the Old World, to a time before Deathwing's rampage and world redesign, and as it turns out, people like the Old World. Cataclysm is generally considered as the decline of...
There's something magical about the Old World that'll never be matched by... I don't care about graphics or anything else. The Old World, it just hits that spot, man.
WoW, and while there were numerous factors as to why the decline happened, I'm willing to wager that one of them was the Old World revamp, in which they gutted a large number of iconic questlines in an attempt to streamline the leveling experience and funnel players into the endgame as soon as possible. This was a mistake, and the popularity of Classic and its world is a testament to people's enjoyment of leveling and exploring the world unhindered by the developer's desire to boot you out the door straight into the max level experience. This sentiment has led to a growing number of WoW players asking for a second Old World revamp. History tends to repeat itself.
I want a second Old World revamp, that'd be nice.
And Blizzard have recently learned not only that people still love their old work, but that also they're no longer invincible, and that they have to give in to players' demands, which so far they have in Dragonflight. So if Blizzard are to be believed, if they are indeed in there giving players what they want arc, we can perhaps hope that an Old World revamp is within the realm of possibility. Rachel Vaught, WoW's senior game designer, recently made this tweet, to which people quickly flocked with pleas for an Old World revamp, asking for Gilneas, for Quel'Thalas to fucking not have a loading screen.
She was asking people what they want.
A new Teldrassil, etc. So much so that she had to clarify that she makes quests, not terrain, and while we can safely assume that she was just talking about the Human Heritage Armor questline coming in 1007,
there it is.
She, and by extension Blizzard, are aware of people's overwhelming demand for an Old World revamp.
Oh yeah, Blizzard knows that we want to see the Old World revamped. For sure. We get that. There are hundreds of forums. Every time they tweet, people say it.
Let's run it back to my previous video for a second, where I talk about evergreen features. Evergreen features are basically additions to the game which are here to stay. Now, I believe that a good game world would be a prime example of an evergreen feature, because a good game world goes a long way. Everyone who plays the game interacts with it, and these 2 continents were the first to be introduced into WoW, so people have a lot of nostalgia for them. They were the basis upon which this game was built, and they deserve a lot of care and attention from Blizzard. I mean, the game is literally called World of Warcraft, so the world should be a big part of the gameplay experience.
Yeah,
and speaking of gameplay experience, at the moment, a player's...
I mean, it is the world at the end of the day that we all fell in love with back when we started playing. The world is World of Warcraft. It's nothing without it. Now, I'm not just saying that literally, but I'm saying that's what we fell in love with, was the open world adventure of this game. At least for me, just walking through Elwynn Forest, entering Stormwind for the first time. These moments live in my heart forever. And those are world moments, not killing a boss or getting a pair of shoulders. It's the world, man. The exploration.
Intended interaction with the Old World, that is presumably leveling a character, is not that good. While chromie time serves as a good way to point a player toward what expansion they want to level in, it only works for people who are already familiar with Warcraft. People
That's
who
true.
know their stuff. The ones that, as soon as they make a new character, they take all the action bars, auto loot, throw heirlooms on, second screen, they got the most optimal, quickest way, route, guides, speedrun, power level, chauffeur, mech, engineer's chopper, you know. But what about new players? Well, the new player experience at the moment kinda sucks. In this video, Nixium goes into a lot of detail about why the new player experience sucks, but TLDR, leveling is boring and unintuitive because, like I said, Blizzard are trying so hard to bypass the leveling experience and get you into the Dragon Isles as soon as possible, it leaves no room for a player to just explore the world, learn it all at their own pace. Thanks to Cataclysm, questing is so streamlined that it feels like it serves a purely utilitarian purpose. A person in my comments has outlined something that I've also noticed while leveling an ult recently, that the balance during leveling is awful. A level 10 mage player is able to spawn into a dungeon, spam arcane blasts, and completely annihilate everything as an example.
That's different from what it used to be.
To get progressively weaker.
Man, you died all the time. All the time.
Weaker as the levels increase.
Progressively weaker.
Remake the old world.
Oh, so he's saying early game you just blast through everything and later on you get wrecked.
They could perhaps take some lessons they learned in making the Dragon Isles, which leveling experience is very enjoyable.
Bro, early game World of Warcraft was you sticking to the path, because if you ventured off the sidewalk even one step, you were either going to aggro a wolf or a spider that was going to chase you down until it fucking reached inside of you and tore you apart. That's the truth. And that fear that lived in every low-level player was part of the fun of the game. In all honesty, it was so much fun to know that that could happen at any moment. And oh shit, you hear the sound and the aggro and you're just footing it as fast as you can away. Trying to troubleshoot WoW lockup issue. Yeah, I just had a weird update. Because of Shadowlands with the level thing they did made early levels
like
OP.
Incentivize exploration. Give people fun, unique items, make vendors with specific stuff so that the player actually travels through the world. Basically, if they remake the old world and undo the damage caused by Cataclysm, focusing on making it simple for new players, a lot of them might stick around to endgame and not get disoriented.
No new player is going to pick up WoW if they don't know somebody in WoW.
I mean, right now, a new player starts in Exile's Reach, which is a good starting zone for new players. Then they get plopped into BFA, an expansion whose story happened 5 years ago now, and very little of it has to do with Dragonflight, into which they are then immediately placed.
That's true.
The stark contrast of Horde vs Alliance, Azerite Fever, Sylvanas, Bad, Jailer, Azeroth, and then an expansion
None of
where
that
the
makes
factions
sense right
are
now.
suddenly besties, everyone working together, kinda chilling on vacation is like, what? This outlines a bigger problem with not just the leveling and new player experience, but with the game's age, which is both a blessing and a curse, because while it's good that this game that so many people like and play has been actively developed for like 19 years now, there has been so much stuff added, so many characters, places, plots, subplots, that to an outsider it might simply be overwhelming. That's why, if an old world remake was to happen again, Blizzard would have to be careful and make it narratively consistent with the current state of the game and its story, because the narrative in the old world has been pretty much untouched since Kata. Let's give some examples. The swirlies in Westfall that completely ruined the previously tranquil landscape, this fucking jetpack that you have to use to jump over the gap between the barrens, the stone rot dam and subsequent soaking of Menethil Harbor, or more recent examples too.
That makes me sad.
The sword, maybe a resolution to the Warfronts, you know, the game's best, most popular and well-liked feature, the 9.2.5 Lordaeron questline. The old world is in a dire state right now.
It's bad,
It's
actually.
a mishmash of previous expansions and their features and some massive plot holes. It's like an old notebook that you keep writing and over the
Blizzard's
margins,
never gonna
putting
live
in
that sword
loose
down.
pages, stapling bits of paper, trying to keep it together, but what the old world needs is a new notebook. A clean, blank slate upon which the developers of Warcraft can write unconstrained. And
Yeah.
in-game, there have already been some tiny tidbits and hints towards it. For example, after Shadowlands, there has been a narrative time skip of about 5 years or something like that, where
Right, they
the
did add
factions
that.
cooperated peacefully and the world was allowed to heal from its previous
That's why the
wounds.
faction
But
war
so
ending and
far, the
everything makes
only
sense.
healing that we've seen the effect of is the Dragon Isles reawakening. But what about the rest of the world? What about, Gilneas? Now, to be fair, Steve Denuser has all but
I wish
confirmed that
Gilneas was an
something
actual
will be
playable
happening
city.
with Gilneas. Also, the new Teldrassil seed, because the burning of Teldrassil
True.
was a good idea.
Where's our
to
new
begin
tree?
with, but, I mean, think about it. Gilneans are not like second-order refugees. They had to flee Gilneas to Teldrassil and then to Stormwind. I
Yeah.
think it's about time that something is done to address that. Now,
Where
say they
Gilneans
do
go,
remake
cities
the
fall.
old world. Would they remove the original quests, akin to what they've done in Cataclysm? Deprive players of the quests and storylines?
It's such a
that
nice city.
2-year piece of
Aesthetically, this is one of the coolest cities in the game, honestly. It fits the Worgen so well, and the city is actually massive. And it's well done. Like, the art style and everything in the city is very cool. It just would be nice if it was an actual city you could go to. Right now, it's just still, you go there and it's just a Worgen curse running around everywhere.
WoW's history?
It's frozen in
Perhaps
time
yes and
as a
perhaps
starting
no.
zone.
Chromie time exists now. Players might be able to just select Cataclysm as their expansion and be instanced into the Cataclysm era Azeroth. You can already see previous versions of zones by talking to Zidormi, so maybe they could extend that to the whole of the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor for max players looking to complete old zones. And you know what? Honestly, even if they couldn't do that, even if they were to just completely delete the old questlines and stories like they did in Kata, they could align that with Kata Classic, if that ever comes out. So if you want to experience Azeroth as Deathwing is messing it up,
I think Kata
go play
Classic is going to happen.
I do have one plea for Blizzard. If they decide on the revamp, I hope they do the one good thing that they did in Cataclysm, and by that I mean don't do anything to that thing. The music. Keep the old music.
Oh, yeah.
Music has a very powerful effect on people, able to conjure up nostalgia.
Changing the
good
music would be a
memories.
disaster.
So I feel like the music should remain as it is, as
Yes.
it's always been, so that
I log into the game. I have done this, I swear to you. I have logged into the game and gone to certain zones in the game just to keep my headphones on, not have the game even open in front of me, and just listen to the music. Of course, I've done the YouTube as well, you know, where you go, but something about being in the zone and seeing it and then playing the music,
even
nostalgia
if the brave
overload.
new world which awaits us offers an entirely new landscape, we could at least remember that we're still in Azeroth. And I mean, it seems to me like Blizzard are somewhat mindful of music in Dragonflight. The new Uldaman dungeon has the old, Azeroth stock cave music 1 or something. The music in the Azure Span is a clear homage to Grizzly
Hills, 100%.
And the music around the Titan facilities in Thaldraszus has the iconic musical motif from Storm Peaks interwoven, so I wouldn't really worry about that.
Very good.
But what about instances? Dungeons and raids which exist in the old world. I don't think they would want to throw all that into the caverns of time. Perhaps they could do what they did to Uldaman, where instead of changing, nay, ruining the old dungeons like they did with the Dead Mines, Wailing Caverns, Sunken Temple, etc., they can just make a new dungeon in place of the old one and maybe put an NPC next to it that transports you to the old version. Kind of a mix of Zidormi and Lotho's Riftwaker, the NPC that teleports you to the Molten Core. So that both the players wanting to run the theoretical new dungeons could do so during leveling, and the max level players wanting to run old instances for mounts and transmogs could do so from the same place.
I think that's a great option.
So, capital cities. If the main item on Blizzard's agenda for this theoretical revamp would be incentivizing players to explore and use the whole of the World of Warcraft, they would need to give players a reason to go to capital cities other than just Stormwind and Orgrimmar.
Yeah, Stormwind and Orgrimmar are the only cities that get
making
love.
it into a chore. This is where they could take some lessons from Classic, where the capital cities play a much larger part of the leveling experience. Like, I don't know about you, but whenever I level a character in Classic and go to a capital city, it actually feels like me, an adventurer, going into a capital city to do all these things like work in my professions, learn talents, buy crafting materials off the auction house, deposit and withdraw things from a bank.
If you guys remember the capital city, if you played Alliance back in vanilla days, the capital city was Ironforge. Ironforge was the capital city. Stormwind was kind of forced on the Alliance. Orgrimmar, I know, used to be the capital city for the Horde either way, but for the Alliance, it was Ironforge because the proximity of the auction house and the bank were right across from each other, and it was just that perfect open spot where people would just sit on their mounts all day and just hop between the two, and then fly off to wherever they had to go. And that's what a city was. Man, classic Ironforge was great.
Hand in and pick up new quests, either breadcrumbs to a new zone or quests which narratively require me to leave whatever zone I was in and venture into that capital city. This helps with immersion and world building, making the world feel much more alive and purposeful, and something that Blizzard could perhaps take into consideration when rethinking capital cities.
Okay.
While thinking about the old world
Revamp
I've asked
Silver
myself
Moon.
the question,
That's
what
what I
about the
want.
rest of Azeroth? Northrend, Pandaria, Broken Isles, etc. And I've come to the conclusion that those zones don't really need a fundamental rework the way the old world does, because those zones and their respective expansions have been pretty much untouched since their introduction. They serve as time capsules to that particular time in WoW's history and weren't disturbed in the way that the old world has constantly had stuff put in, taken out, etc. And people haven't really been clamoring for the remake of those zones as much as they have for Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms. Perhaps it's a discussion for another day. We don't even know if we'll get an old world remake at all, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Speaking of getting ahead, dragon riding, this new feature added in the new expansion, is a completely new way to travel around the world of Warcraft.
The revamp could bring dragon riding to Azeroth.
I want to talk about dragon riding because its implementation meant that the 4 new zones added in Dragonflight had to facilitate this feature. Basically, the zones are really big and spacious, with loads of dramatic elevation changes, mountains, and other geographical wonders. I'm mentioning this because people enjoy dragon riding very much.
Good.
So much so that many have asked for Blizzard to implement it worldwide. Problem is, the old world isn't really designed with dragon riding in mind.
No,
so it's a similar case of what I said earlier in the video with the Kata world revamp being made for regular flying. So could this new theoretical world revamp be made with dragon riding in mind?
That's a good point, actually.
This would perhaps involve making some dramatic changes to what the zones look like, which I wouldn't mind because the Blizzard art department have a nigh impeccable track record, and the Dragon Isles are a perfect example of what they're capable of making when unconstrained.
Beautiful.
The old world, specifically its zones, are quite small when compared to the Dragon Isles. They're quite packed with stuff, locations, and quest lines, which can be seen even with regular flying. How if you're
don't forget, you spent the majority of the game on foot. Back when these zones were made, up to level 40, you were just footing it. I used to foot it all as an Alliance player, all the way to freaking Scarlet Monastery, which was like a 15-minute journey on foot. So if things were as big as the Dragon Isles are right now, that would have been a freaking 45-minute journey.
In the old world,
so they had to make things compact back then.
You're just zooming past everything, flying over whatever obstacle, natural or otherwise. It's cheating. It breaks up the pacing of whatever quest lines you're doing and gives no breathing room to absorb the world around you. So with dragon riding, it would be even faster and turn the old world into a complete blur. And sure, not everything has to be done on foot. Some things should be made easier or more convenient with flying. Like in Classic, doing the wetlands run as a night elf, for example, is a goddamn chore. But there are moments during leveling when you're able to just soak it in and vibe with the atmosphere of the world.
Yeah.
Dragonflight has been able to avoid the pitfall of speed leveling with regular flying because its quest lines and world building are designed with you flying around in mind.
That's great.
Everything is much further apart and the terrain is created to navigate within, not above it, like in the old world.
Yeah, you see, the one great thing about Dragonflight is Blizzard decided to not only revamp flying, but embrace flying. Unlike every other expansion before this one, since... when did this shit start? It wasn't Cataclysm, no, because you could buy flying right away. Was it It was Mists of Pandaria, maybe? Yeah, where they started, locking out flying until the end of the expansion. They basically just decided flying is a bad thing for the game, until Dragonflight, where they designed the zones to embrace flying. And now the flying is unbelievable. And dragon riding is a fantastic feature.
You just glance over everything and fly through zones which change biome and climate like the flip of a switch, showing that despite flying being facilitated for in the old world, it was sort of forced into it without major forethought.
Sure.
Now, if we're talking about a major redesign, perhaps merging some zones to give the new old world some breathing room would work. Here's an example that I spun up in Paint in like 2 minutes of how this hypothetical zone merger could maybe look across the Eastern
Oh.
Kingdoms and Kalimdor. Now this is obviously just a quick idea of mine, but you could see how, if some liberties were taken, this new world building framework could be applied to the old world.
Yeah, no, that
There are,
totally
however,
makes sense.
two problems with them implementing
Yeah, his map
across the
his map
Eastern.
makes sense. His map makes sense. Not only that, a lot of this would help facilitate leveling because remember we had a level squish and everything too. So you'd be able to level through these zones where there are less zones, but each zone is bigger and more expansive. You'd have more time to tell stories in each zone. You'd have more time to level in each zone. This is great. The X. The tree is gone.
Kingdoms and Kalimdor. Now this is obviously just a quick idea of mine, but you could see how, if some liberties were taken,
What's up, Unreal Blue?
this new world building framework could be applied to the old world. There are, however, two problems with them implementing dragon riding throughout the old world. Number one, players would be relegated to using 4 mounts, and okay, I know there's like a 5th unused model for one, but that's still kind of
Oh, what the
not a
fuck?
lot
I didn't even know
compared to
that.
how many mounts there are in game. And while I'm aware
Yeah.
that these
No,
dragon
we need to be
riding
able to
mounts have
use
their
our
models
mounts.
based on already existing models, how the fuck are you supposed to make this Dragonfly or
Oh shit,
this?
yeah.
The second issue, ground mounts. Would they be completely relegated into obscurity with the exception of a few zones and instance content? Would new players
Yeah,
be
I
allowed to
guess.
use dragon riding from pretty much the get-go like you can in the Dragon Isles and risk being overwhelmed with this new hasty system of traversing the world?
No. Maybe for alts, but your first character, you got to learn how to fucking ride a mount. You got to learn how to fly, and you got to learn how to drag. There's no, you cannot give a new player dragon riding. That'd be ridiculous. Part of the adventure is learning how to travel the world in better and faster ways.
Would they be introduced to it
You got to be able to ride a boat. You got to be able to foot it at places before
later
you do
and
any
be
of that
forced
shit.
to slowly run around these new spacious zones? Or perhaps Blizzard could compromise and make all the zones have their own tight, self-contained stories appropriate for ground travel, and once new players unlock dragon riding, they could then go back to these zones and rediscover things previously hidden from them. And before you say that people don't care about world building that incentivizes exploration and has mysteries and stuff, Elden Ring won Game of the Year. People still want to get lost in a game world. Just because the vast majority of gamers nowadays want quick, instant gratification doesn't mean that there aren't still some people who want an immersive experience.
Yep.
And we all know what happened when Blizzard tried to make WoW for a modern gaming audience.
Okay.
While on the subject of Dragonflight, the rework wouldn't happen in this expansion. I'm no game designer, but it's obvious even to me that a project of
Elden
this
Ring was
scale
also
would take a
beautiful
long
first time. It
However,
was.
say it were to happen in the next expansion, there's already ways in which the current expansion and its lore would allow the rework to happen narratively, as opposed to Cataclysm. This time, the face of Azeroth would change not through
Bill Clinton.
cataclysmic events, but rather through nature healing itself and prospering thanks to the Dragonflights retaking their charge as protectors of Azeroth. Particularly
great way to
the
put it
red
into the lore.
Dragonflight, who are seen as the givers of life. This has already been hinted at in the Take to the Sky cinematic, where Alex...
where she blows her load everywhere and all the trees regrow and everything. That'd be perfect. What a great way to tie it into the lore.
can be seen spewing life into some barren wasteland. Also, the Black Dragonflight is a thing again, and they're like earth dragons, so maybe they could somehow reshape the world as repentance for the sins of their father.
Yeah.
Dragonflight has been described as a foundation upon which this new chapter of WoW is built, and while we've only seen the very beginning of it as of making this video, Blizzard are already doing things for the game which will have a lasting impact on it. The aforementioned evergreen
Dragonflight is in essence a new foundation for the game.
Features, and one of
Because
those
the old
features
foundation
is the
fucking
profession
crumbled.
rework. However, to an astute observant, it quickly becomes evident that one of those professions is missing: archaeology. Archaeology, introduced in Cataclysm and seemingly abandoned in Shadowlands, is the only profession which hasn't received a rework. But if their roadmap is to be believed, they do intend to rework it and bring it back into the fold, which makes sense seeing as there is like a...
Archaeology would be a very cool way to explore the new world.
whole faction whose sole purpose is to explore and catalog the Dragon Isles, so
A lot
them
of this
doing
makes
a bit
sense.
of digging would be the next logical step. Anyways, the reason why I bring it up is because Blizzard could perhaps make this new archaeology a bigger part of the world.
Yeah, evidently
They
tied
could
well. It
maybe
looks like
put
it's
in
part of
entire
the
quest lines which
plan.
involve digging up the history of Azeroth, or even put in little Easter eggs to previous expansions or events.
That'd be cool.
Another groundwork which the WoW team could perhaps implement into this old world revamp is player housing. In the interview with Hazelnutty, game director Ian Hazakostas said that player housing would be such a big undertaking that it would have to span the course of multiple expansions.
It's a big undertaking. And I think I would argue that if we were to do it,
I don't think they'll have.
It would probably stand.
I don't think they'll have the manpower for player housing until post like Microsoft acquisition, because it would require a massive dev team just to undertake that part of the game.
Multiple expansions.
And perhaps an old world which facilitates dragonflying would also have space enough to put in player housing at a later date. Now all these things, all these theories, ideas and wishes are all fine and well in the mind of the end user. Blizzard just do this, put this in, fix this, change that, but behind everything in the world of Warcraft, there is a team of developers who work on this game. Human beings who have to type out the code, draw the art, sculpt the terrain, voice the characters and all that. All these monumental changes to WoW, while fun to theorize and ponder, require lots of manpower. Activision Blizzard have recently acquired Proletariat, swallowing their game studio into their multi-billion-dollar empire and relegating them exclusively to working on WoW. And while we can already see the effects of this additional staff with how quickly Blizzard are able to iterate on and make changes to Dragonflight and how much content they have planned ahead, it would be unwise to assume anything regarding an old world revamp. All that we know is that they were able to do it once before, and that they are aware of the players' demand for it. All that we as consumers can do is wait and see what unfolds in the future of the world of Warcraft.
There it is. Great video. I mean, I hope. That's all we can do is hope, right? All we can do is hope. Hope and pray that these kinds of things are coming, because, yeah, I think an old world revamp would breathe new life into the game, and there's tons of ways they can wrap it into, like he said, into the lore, probably into the gameplay as well, and then bring dragon riding to Azeroth. Come on. All great things.